policy.
Okay.
Okay, within the policy itself, it describes the area, geographic area covered by the policy, and I'm looking for it right now. Okay, it's the mouth of the Mattole River south to San Francisco. So it's the mouth of Mattole. In addition, what we did is we looked at watersheds that drain to San Francisco and northern San Pablo Bay. And when you look at the watersheds and how they drain, the Eel River is in a different watershed than the watersheds that drain to San Francisco and in northern San Pablo Bay, which is why the Eel River is not within the policy area.
Then why would the Mattole be? Because it's further away from the Bay Area watershed than the Eel.
Well, I think when you look at the watersheds and how they drain, the Eel River watershed drains, was it north? Drains northward, whereas the Mattole River watershed drains towards the south. That's the other way. Okay. Next.
Confusion. Oops. Turn things up already. The confusion a little bit here is that the areas that we were to address in the policy were based on watershed areas, and the Eel River itself, as she mentioned, drained further north. We looked at the objective of what the policy was designed to do, and it was essentially the 5 county areas that drained either to the ocean or primarily to the San Francisco Bay, one way or the other. Things that are moving southward. The Mattole and the Eel River, as you're well aware of, drain northward, and they're in watersheds that are not very well defined in the AB 2121 policy. But that was the decision of the board to do that. So the Eel River is not, and then the other reason too, the eel a little bit, is because of the wild and scenic status that it does have. We do not have a lot of pending water right applications north of the Eel. And the issues that we're dealing with are primarily in those 5 counties where we have a lot of activity.
Okay, with that, please proceed into your original discussion.
Okay, let me start a little bit and I'll give the brief histories we talked about. The policy itself has history with the State Water Resources Control Board. It goes back in the early 1990s. At that time, the board conducted a number of hearings, proceedings, and some of which we held in Santa Rosa, locally, and in Sacramento. And it culminated in a 1997 report that developed by staff. It was later followed up with some workshops with the ag industry and some consultants and attorneys that we were working with at the time. And then further into the Department of Fish and Game and their development of what's commonly referred to as a 2002 guidelines that are joint guidelines, draft guidelines prepared by NOAA Fisheries and the Department of Fish and Game. In 2004, Assembly Bill AB 2121 was passed and signed by the governor. It originally said that the State Water Resources Control Board shall adopt a policy by January 1 of 2000, or January 1 of 2007, excuse me. It was later amended to January 1 of 2008, partially because of the late start they got in signing the bill and didn't provide us much time to develop any policy and meet some of the statutory guidelines that are required under that policy. So again, it was extended to January 1 of 2008. It has not been amended any further. You obviously can tell it's past January 1, 2008. Part of that too is when we got the mandate, we didn't receive any additional funding typically, which I'm listening to you guys earlier today. Same sort of thing. We have a state mandated program with no funding, no staff. I'm going to revisit that a little bit because it relates to what we do water rights rise. In the 5 county areas, and it includes parts of Nampa and parts of Humboldt County, but not all. Nampa, Sonoma, Mendocino, Marin, they're the primary guys. In that county, we have currently we have approximately 310 pending water right applications. We have probably, I'm going to guess, a little over 300 pending petitions to change existing water rights. In the Russian River watershed alone, we have records and notations of 1,430 or 1,440 water rights that we know of. different types of water rights, but they also include the two major impoundments, Lake Mendocino and Lake Sonoma. Lake Mendocino and Sonoma are really not part of the policy in a way. They are mentioned in there, but they're not really going to be addressed in the policy, and that's a separate item before the State Water Board. It's how to deal with Lake Sonoma, Lake Mendocino, and the main stem of the Russian. Large impoundments are somewhat excluded. So where we're at today is we produced a draft policy that was circulated the end of December. It was circulated for a 45-day review period. And based on the comments we received from a number of people and a number of some of your constituents that said this is too much of a technical document to review and provide comments within 45 days, the board granted an additional 90 days from the time that they did that to noon on May 1 of 2008. So written comments and formal comments to the board are due on or before noon of May 1. And that's currently what the status is. The water rights process, again, I noted in some of the comments in here, this policy is not designed to address the backlog of water rights pending before the board. It's a policy to develop guidelines, and as Roland had mentioned earlier, that's the title. It's to provide protection for in-stream flow releases or in-stream flow requirements and resources, but not necessarily provide for a streamlining of the water rights process or to provide restoration of in-stream resources or public trust resources. It's protection. So that's kind of a brief history, and believe me, there's a lot more to it than that. It's a very brief overview. I'm not sure, Chairman, where you'd like us to go next with this, but I could.
Well, I think
at your pleasure.
There might be a couple more concerns expressed by the board, and if we can have those, and then any further input from the water agency, and then we'll go to public comment. While we're discussing this, any members of the public that wish to address this concern of the policy, there are the salmon, no pun intended, the salmon colored cards in the back, and please fill those out and bring those forward so that we can have a knowledge of how many speakers wish to speak to this issue. So back to the board. Comments to this point? Supervisor.
I'd just like to get a copy from you folks that shows there because it's not in the bill that I have the copy of, where it shows the Eel River exempt from this process.
It's actually in our policy, and it's in the document that she read from is what we have circulated.
Okay.
That helps, but
You know, these are in the documents. What we're pointing to is
I don't have that. Can I get a copy of that?
Draft policy. Yes, it's also available on our webpage. There's 3 documents that are associated with this, total about 1,000 pages. And
I'd
this
like
is
to get
the
a
policy.
hard copy of that if I could.
We can send you one.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll get the information.
you bet. You bet.
When we get back, it'll be in the mail. It's like I said, it is quite a large document. And in all of these documents and frequently asked questions and things are posted on our webpage. We've tried to be responsive a little bit. It's a tough read, don't get me wrong. And although I read it numerous times, it's still a tough read. But it is available for anybody that wants to look for it. It's on the page. We'll expect to expand our frequently asked questions as we go along. One other comment. What we were looking at is we had done some workshops too to define some of these things and allow people to provide us input. We are not doing any more. We're out of time essentially to schedule those and to put them forward. We have offered to a number of folks, as we have the board here, to individually come back and bring our staff and respond to questions and comments on the board on the policy, but not necessarily to respond to formal comments before the board on the